Okay, so did you want to focus mostly on ZVP today?
I don't know. I haven't had any coaching before, so
Cool.
I'm happy to be guided by you. But that's probably the matchup where I'm the most confused.
Yeah.
Just with Skytoss, it's all new and it's void rays are difficult.
Yeah, I think that's okay. That's a good place to start. So for goals, to give ourselves some goals. Okay, so ZVP, we just want to understand stuff more. Definitely, we need probably, if we can, I guess, part of it might be to make sure we just talk a few minutes theory of ZVT and ZVZ, just to make sure you've like thought out your game plan properly for those matchups, which is obviously such an important part of like improving. We're not going to be able to cover them in detail, but we can have like, okay, so basically brief chat covering theory of ZVT and ZVZ. And we want to try and just cover pointers plus key problems. ZVP in a bit more detail. So to use the best time, if you in-game, just go /join Piggy, P-I-G-G-Y. And then you should see me in there. I've actually been removing people from my friends list recently to clear up space, and it actually hasn't even been letting me add people even when I've been trying to. So I'm like, I'm so done with the StarCraft friends list. It's so funny. It's such a piece of crap. All right, so I'm gonna make you the leader. So let's host up that replay you had in mind. So to get the most out of it, I am very aware of the fact that we only have so much time available. So my game just kind of relogged. That was weird. Okay, that was super weird, but we are good. Just right-click me, make me the lobby host. So what we'll do is we'll fast forward through this replay. I'll start passing information. I don't want you to look at the replay at all. Just ignore it for now. Let's just look at the document. Do you have 2 monitors?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. So the way we can cover the most shit possible, hopefully give you the most value. I will be kind of glancing at that, but not too much. Most of it is, first of all, let's start talking ZVP. So what do we want to cover? We want to talk about, okay, key problems, void rays, any other problems you've got, type them out there. I don't know, charge lots. I'm just putting some dot points. If you write down any other like key areas where you feel like you get destroyed, maybe it's Glaver Depths or Phoenix, maybe it's just void rays, maybe it's the latest Skytoss. If you can write a few more dot points under ZVP key problems up the top there, and then I'll also with ZVP, it'll obviously be some other stuff I'm writing down here, like game plan, making sure our build is well-defined, well-defined build, as well as, of course, part of that is finding the right balance between intuition and predefined strategic lines. All right, we don't want to get too rigid, but all right, so yeah, is it mostly the Skytoss openings? Are there other openings, like if you get glaive adapted, do you fall behind a lot or anything like that?
I often struggle with the exact scouting timings on Protoss. Like I've been having this internal argument with myself. Like I always go OV speed in ZVT, and like, do you do that in ZVP? But then it's hard. I always feel like more so than ZVT, I fall behind. Like I need every single drone I can get, and if you don't do it, then half the games they pop out a stalker and kill you. OV, and then you can't exactly, and then you can't sort of see what they go into. You know, they have so many different transitions, which can be minor. Like it almost feels like you have to see their whole base every 2 minutes in the first like 8 minutes of the game. Otherwise, you're just going to get surprised.
So, do you have a base style? So these are all good questions. Okay, so game plan and build. Let's talk about that a little bit. So, are we playing Hydra Bane every game? That's what it looks like you're heading for in this one, or do you drastically change it up like game to game?
Well, I like to play Roach. Roach into Roach Hydra, and then Lurkers if everything's standard against the ground Protoss.
Okay, cool. So Roach into Roach Hydra Lurker, but obviously if you see Skytoss, then you're going Hydras. Okay, so you're going Hydra Bane reactively if they open, like, basically multiple Void Rays or multiple Stargate Phoenix or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. But if it's just like a couple Oracles, do you stay Roaches, Roachbane?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, not Roachbane, Roach Hydra.
Yeah.
It's always you go into Hydras, it's just, are you investing in the Roaches or are you trying to go, oh, he's going Stargate. So wait a sec, if you see a single Stargate early going Oracle, do you try to skip the Roaches? Are you kind of in the mindset of let's get melee, let's head towards Hydra Bane, but if we see a ground transition, then we reactively build Roaches? How do you think about that?
Some games I've been going for I've been getting more and more Ling attack upgrades because obviously watching Cyril, that's what he's also been going for, and rolling Banes into mineral lines. But I just play a lot of Roach upgrades, like range upgrades. Into, Roach Hydra, into, like, not heavy Hydra, just like a little bit of sprinkling of Hydra, and then for Lurkers.
And do you get Vipers with Roach Hydra Lurker much? Or Brood
I
Lords?
tried to later on, yeah. No, not Brood Lords. Never get Brood Lords.
You just get the Hive upgrades for the Lurkers pretty quickly?
Yeah. And then the ideal late game army would be like, 3 or 4 Vipers with a whole bunch of Lurkers, as many Lurkers as possible. That's not against Skytoss, obviously.
I mean, and the goal there to win if you're against ground is obviously you start sending Lurkers into mineral lines, like individual Lurkers queued into the back of bases, even if they've got a cannon, right? Like,
OV drops. If I have the APM for it. Like, a lot of the time I forget, but it's just OV drops and split attacks if I have the APM.
Yeah, well, like, if we look at this map, for instance, right? Like, if he had this 3 bases, if we look in this game, if you drop a few Lurkers in the main, that's so powerful. Even if it's 2 Overlords, 4 Lurkers, it's like, because then you just run one in the main, run one in the natural, burrow one on the high ground above the 3rd. That's such a huge disruption. And when you're on 4 base economy, that could be game ending, right? If you just start getting those Lurker drops in. So that's cool. So we've got Lurker Harass. We could also start Lurker pushing. You kind of want to, if they're trying to go to Skytoss off that, you're kind of wanting to trade and like abduct carriers and push in and kill bases before they get to like 8 carriers. And hopefully we can go double Spire and kind of get Corruptor upgrades as well off that. So if they swap Skytoss, aim is to harass with Lurkers, deny bases with frontal pushes, and to slowly, and to abduct carriers. And then, of course, add double Spire for upgrades in case we need a big round of Corruptors.
Ground into Skytoss swap later, like a 10-minute Skytoss swap, that seems like the easiest Skytoss to beat. Because you've got everything you need, you probably pretty much have your hive. Like, you've got everything you need. But when they take greedy 3rd, cannon it up, it's like, okay, well, I can't get aggressive. Like, it's really hard to get aggressive if they just do like 6, 7 Void Rays, completely stop Stargate production, go into fast High Templars, like 7:45 or 8-minute Storm, and charge lot, and then get safe against like a Hydra timing, and then put their 4th down and go straight back into Skytoss. That's so difficult. It just feels like nothing's good because it feels like Corruptors are crap against their 8 Void Rays. It feels like Hydras are crap because they're going to have Storm, so you can't build Hydras. And I'm just like, I have no idea what to do against this.
So I have a really nice answer for you, which has helped me because I also was getting really pissed off. Technically, getting very quick Vipers, defending your bases can be really good versus heavy Void Ray. You can do that. But there is a much easier response to kill these Void Ray players. I learned it from Dark. I saw a game where he did not actually win the game. He almost did, but he ended up dying. But I said, nah, let's do that. I beat Prince yesterday, who's a Korean pro gamer who's infinitely better than me, and totally fucked up my first wave. And that is a Nidus. Let's hop out. We can hop back into this replay. I'll show you that replay straight away since I have one from yesterday doing it. So that's going to be, just make me the party leader. And what's going to be really inspiring about this replay is how friggin' terrible my execution is, because I haven't had many reps with it, and yet it still kills him after he crushes the first wave. I could have sworn I was dead. It's just when people do these Skytoss builds, they are so fragile because they just can't build anything that kills Zerglings, right? They're building Void Rays. In this case, he went Phoenixes as well to try and like pick up the Queens, because that's a good way to disable a whole lot of the Queens while your Void Rays kill them. none of that deals with Zerglings. So this is basically, I just got sick of these silly Void Rays until I got a third base off one Zealot or one Adept or something and a Void Ray sitting overhead. It's frustrating, isn't it? And it felt to me, looking at those games, that they were cheating, you know? I was like, nah, there's got to be a soft spot. And then we saw, yeah, Solar was doing Queen walk across the map. Like, you know, like 7-8 Queens walk across with Ravager Ling. Just kept doing that over and over again. And sometimes even would like drop creep out of an Overlord and build some spores. But then I saw this, and I've seen Solar do this, as well as a bunch of other players, Dark, like I said, and it's so good. So essentially, once you see a second Void Ray, that's...
Upgrades.
Sorry?
Yeah, he's got the fast weapons. This is the type of stuff that I struggle against.
Yeah, real disgusting one. As soon as you see the second Void Ray, that's my tell for this. If I see a second Void Ray, and sometimes I might even head in this direction if it's even a single Void Ray. So I will always get a quick lair, even versus single Void Ray.
Okay.
Even single Void Ray equals quick lair for me now. So I have this option, right? But basically, you only need one gas, technically. Usually we go 2 gases just so we can spam a few extra Nidus Worms if we need. And it just gives you a little more flexibility if you're going to it a bit later. But technically, you could just do it off 1 gas. So if you want to do, like, you're playing Skytoss all the time, say 3 out of 4 games, Skytoss. You want to maybe say, I just want to do almost like I'm just going into this by default and I'm going to hit like the most hard, sharp timing. You're like 2 mineral lines, 1 gas, straight for lair. You've still got the third base up. You just don't really build any drones for it. Maybe 4 or 5. And you just like, cool, make masslings, non-stop queens, get the Nidus down when the lair's ready, pop a Nidus out front their base with all your lings there. You send an Overseer into the main to spot for Nidus there. Basically, you just always pop the Nidus out front to start though. Somewhere where it's safe, where it can get up. Drop creep there, start pushing in with Queen Massling, keep trying to drop Niduses in the back door, and you just keep building Queens and loading them into the Nidus. You're like, each time Queen pops out, inject, click, get in the Nidus, inject, get in the Nidus, and just keep rallying Lings into the Nidus and unloading them, and you just look to overwhelm. And you'll see in this case, I had quite a big economy, 48 drones, right? Because I didn't necessarily realize what I was up against all that early. And I even was like, well, I have a second gas and a bit of extra gas. Maybe I should build some Roaches and Ravagers. I think they added almost nothing to this push. I thought they might do a lot, but I think I was like, oh, yeah, maybe this will help. They just died of Void Rays kind of quick. So basically the Lings come in, try to start killing stuff if they're not in too bad of a position. I throw that Nidus on the right-hand side. I was really lucky that his units were on the other side of the map. So I was like, sweet, we got a good start to it. And I just start focusing down units where I can, spread creep from that Nidus Worm, which I think I'm a little slow to do in this case. And I just try to get on in there. Now, the Phoenix, really good at actually disabling units. It's very important you focus fire. If you focus fire, even with shield battery overcharge, what you can even do, right? So say you're just fighting Void Rays, say there's no Phoenixes disrupting, you might want to grab all your Queens and actually move command them. So they stop fighting for a second and then shoot, just so they all sync up. Because if you have, let's say you have, what was this, 8 Queens? 7 Queens? I think we just lost one. Let's say we have 8 Queens. What's 8 times 9? It's like 72. So you can just be like, bam, 72 damage, bam, 72 damage. And especially if your Lings are hitting other units as well, it just means you can kill a unit very suddenly while the shield battery overcharge or the shield batteries might be busy repairing random Zealots on the ground or other things that are taking damage. So even if there's a battery overcharge, sometimes you can overwhelm units in range of it. And especially if you get to like, I think when Dark did, he had like 14 Queens. And he would just pop Void Rays even through battery overcharge if they stood in range of the Queens, just because they were doing so much. Sorry?
Who's the Dark game against? Dark.
It was against Skillus. So I think I might have the replay.
I'll find it.
It's yeah. I think it might be in one of the replay packs. I may have put it in from the recent weeks.
Game?
Sorry?
Is it casted by anyone?
It might be on my YouTube actually. Oh, I think I did. Let me see. Dark invades NAPT Pigstarcraft. I don't know. Let's see if we can. I don't know if it went up.
As well.
Skillus.
Do you look to transition out of this, or is it just I'm killing you?
Yeah, I'm just killing you. You just keep going. Technically, you could, but you're basically looking to kill them. If say they pulled straight back to the natural and gave up the third, and it looked really solid and unbreakable, I would still try to get in there and try to break it down and be trying to kill stuff. But that's where I'm like, oh, you're just giving up your third? That's where I'd be very much open to the idea of, okay, maybe I can back out of this, like start droning behind it. Obviously, you could just drop a Spire and go mass Corruptors. Corruptors aren't the greatest versus Void Rays, but if you can bait out Prismatic Alignment, run away, come back when it's off, that can do. It's like a simple response. You could just go Hydras, of course. I mean, really, I think just comes down to whatever you feel like.
I know there's a lot of what ifs. What if they do like a Forge Fast Expand? I don't think I saw any cannons on this one. And they have cannons, like, it's really hard for Lings and Queens to go through cannon shield battery, right?
Yeah, if they do a Forge Fast Expand, you actually have a really, really good time early game. So you've got to be very specific in how you respond to those openings. You should rush Lair and rush Spire, in my opinion, usually against Forge Fast Expands. However, if you realize they are going Stargate, you can go for other things. But what you can do is you can get your tech up and your scouting really early. You don't need to build any defense. So the trick against Forge Fast Expand is to drone just like crazy hard because they can't pressure you because their shit's so late. So, yeah. So basically... Yep. Sorry, what was that? Oh, I can't hear you right now.
Oh, sorry, I said, so when they do a Forge Fast Expand, you just go the fastest possible mute as you can.
I like to do that because Forge Fast Expand for a long time was always people playing Blink or Robo.
Okay.
But if you're playing more Sky... so I always like the Spire no matter... And because it forces people to go Phoenix. Usually, just from seeing the Spire, if it's quick enough, they kind of have to build Phoenix. So I'd say highest priority to get ahead, drone like crazy. No need for fast Ling speed or any defensive measures, right? Until way later than normal. So you can kind of play just 3 base drones, fast Lair into Overseer Scout plus Spire can be amazing. So if you want, you could do that as standard, Spire plus Hydra Den, right? That would be a cool way to do it. So the idea there being, oh, he has to 100% respond to the Spire because that's the one that can just kill him. But then you can just pick, right? When those structures finish, you can like start a Hydra upgrade, but not actually invest and just have your Overseer or 2 scouting. And you're like, oh yeah, he has 2 Stargates. I think he'll be building Phoenix. I'm not even going to use the Spire. I'll let it finish, but I'm just going to, nope, just, you know, keep droning, get up 4 bases, get Hydras, just do a Hydra Bane. So I think that would be the other way to do it. And that's kind of what you tried in that replay we were looking at. So let's go back and look at that one again. So I'll make you the leader and we can host that up. So Hydra Bane, still very good for breaking Skytoss. The tricks usually, let me make you that leader. So the tricks are normally, don't let them, just make me the lobby host, please. Don't let them expand for free. Awesome. So that's one of the big things, right? So that's where things like Pack of Lings to deny a third can be really good. We just need to make sure we don't overcommit. We don't want to go down that railgun path, building 120 Zerglings, deny the third base 3 times, and we're still behind because we just didn't build any drones. Like, it's very... Sorry?
Was that game on Jagannatha?
I think so. It was the Hearthstone series. It was the Is it Imba? Did you watch that? Yeah. Where Railgun made a ton of mistakes. And yeah, he's very blind to his own mistakes. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's the most infuriating type of Protoss player to play against. I like the way Hearthstone says at the start of that video, he's like, yeah, this is basically what everybody hates about like Protoss players, like or StarCraft players who choose to play this way in general. He was like, oh man, this shit pisses me off. Like, you know, he's like, everybody hates this, but you know, okay, like I'm sure you could beat it. He's like, it's very hard to beat Skytoss if they use Storm, but he might just play without Storm, and he played without Storm, which is, you know, that's the thing. So that's a good point. Hitting before Storm with Hydra Bane, if you can do that, hitting before Storm, there's usually a crucial point, right?
Yeah.
The not expanding for free is important because if you let them expand for free, and then you say committing really hard to like 75 drone Hydra Bane push, that's a very powerful push. But if we're very transparent and we've let them be greedy, sometimes they can just have like a mixture of like, oh, there's like 8 cannons and shield batteries at their like third. So even though they've only got 3 carriers out, which is really bad against 20, 25 Hydras, right? They can just kill the interceptors. You add the batteries and the cannons and suddenly you're like, oh shit, like this actually does hold on. So I think those are a few factors with the Hydra Bane push. Like, I don't necessarily, like I said, I'd rather just, if they're just going straight into it, like this sort of game, absolutely. This is prime Queenling Nidus real estate, this game, right? No cannons or anything. The great thing about it as well is because you're often stopping at like, 40 drones, at most 50 workers, you're building a lot of lings there anyway, which means you could potentially, be denying this third or trading out there. And you almost kind of want them to take the third and get it up, right?
Yeah.
But if you could pick off a few adepts or a pylon, they're putting in money into it that's trading out before they even realize what's really happening. That's where it's like super killer. So let's imagine we don't even know it's Skytoss, which I don't think you did this game necessarily. Oh, no, you did. But let's imagine you don't know. If you were playing a standard game, but it's a Stargate opening, and we're worried about these super quick thirds Protosses are doing,
Yep.
and we wanted to do that like kind of ling speed deny on the third, I think the fastest anyone's dropping is like, what, 4 minutes 30 usually? Occasionally you get someone like 4:10, but 4 minutes 30 is probably the earliest they're dropping it usually, right? And I think if they've gone 3 gates and a Stargate into the third Nexus, and they put 2 Adepts in wedge them in here, and they're like, keeping an Oracle at home or a Void Ray there, we might not get that deny. That's totally fine. Like, they are not really pressuring you, right? But if they're both diving Oracles into your mineral line, then going into Mass Void Ray, and they've got a single Adept and a Pylon and Nexus, it's just one of those things you're like, So the way I like to think of it is you've got your first 6 to 10 lings out anyway to deal with 2 Adepts, right? That's usually before 4 minutes. But then I think the second wave of that is like potentially at like maybe, let's just say 4 minutes 20, build another 16 lings to properly deny it, right? Properly to deny the third. So you can start with your first handful of lings, just trying to pick off the probe as they move out there and stuff. And you can have the rest of them, assuming they're taking a bit of a later third, you can have them wait outside. And then, like, as they push back those 6 to 8 lings, they bring enough units out, then the rest can come in and surround the Nexus as it starts to confirm that deny, surround the Adepts before they get in the little nooks and crannies. There's a few different ways you can do it. That's a very powerful option against these players who are kind of like just 1 gate into a third base, making sure we don't let them get that up and deny it. But we just want to make sure it's really calm and controlled, where it's like a pre-planned timing of build this many lings and then keep building drones and overlords and everything else behind it. And I think you should be okay.
Okay.
One of the bonus points of dealing, of using those lings as well, and I've seen even pros screw this up, if you're using those lings, you shouldn't need spores. If you're hitting early enough on their third and quick enough with that, usually you can keep their oracles back because they have to kind of go home and defend. So that's a really big thing. The other really big point here to do with Skytoss play in general. So what if we're playing this Hydra Bane sort of stuff? So what if we've seen Skytoss, we're going to go Hydra Bane. Say we're not doing the all-in. It stops working for whatever reason, or people get good against it. Okay, so more normal Skytoss. This is, I'm writing some notes on the bottom of, or top of page 2. So I think one of the things is, if you see Void Ray or Phoenix first, don't build spores. Don't build any spores at all. And that's a really big way you can pick up your economy. So I think in this game, you built your spores too early. So let's like look a bit more at this game and kind of see what we can adjust and adapt. Yeah, because basically if you see that Void Ray hasn't popped and you immediately built panic spores, if you think about it, queens beat them, right? Till they get to about 5 Void Rays, you don't need spores. And even then, having spores doesn't really help. Because if you think about it, they come in from this side, maybe there's 1 spore there, all the rest of your spores don't really do anything. And that spore can also die really quickly. It's actually better to just have an extra queen. And when you think about it, you just killed 3 drones to build those spores. Yeah. And you spent enough minerals, 225 minerals, to build another 4.5. So you just knocked yourself down a potential 7 drones in the next minute or so in this game. And that's actually going to hurt your mineral income. So remember, whenever you're playing against Mutas, Banshees, or Skytoss, you know, Oracle openings or anything, it's actually really important to delay your spores till the last moment where you need them, or skip them entirely if you're building plenty of extra queens and can get away with it. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes they go a single Void Ray into Oracle, But if you just have a few of those lings patrolling across the map, or if you simply leave 2 queens in the main, 2 queens in the third, you're basically safe against that anyway. And even if the Oracle, say, gets 1 or 2 extra kills than it normally would, that's way less damage than us building spores a solid minute and a half ahead of time because of the way your economy scales, right? If you got those drones mining now, it gives you tons more minerals a minute, 2 minutes from now when we're fighting those sky units.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's been a really powerful one. So like I said, yeah, even against Oracle openings where you would normally build those spores, it's like, try to make sure you delay them as much as you can. And if you're Ling flooding their third and keeping their Oracle at home, sometimes you skip them all game. True is one of the... Do you know True, the pro gamer? He's like a super old player. He's in the military at the moment, I think. But do you remember him at all?
I don't remember him. I feel like I might vaguely know the name, but I don't remember his styles or anything.
Super disrespected by the Korean pros. They're all like, oh, he's a fucking idiot. Like, whatever he was doing well in tournaments, he'd be like, man, everyone just disrespects me. They're like always talking shit about how bad I am. Like, all the top pros are. He's like, man, I just want them to respect me just because I play the game differently. He doesn't use control groups, like, except for his hatcheries. He just either select all armies or boxes units, even when he's fighting with Ling Bane. So he's really good in scrappy, messy situations. But, like, he's also just terrible at macro sometimes because, like, he just refuses to build workers. He's just an attack, you know, all in, stabby player. And he got to a very high level with it, and he could win games, but he was never as flexible, I think, as some of these other players. But there was cool details that he would do. He would never build spores versus Protoss Stargate openings. Loved it because he would always build extra queens, and he just try to have his queens in position. And if he got away with it, like there were games where he would lose and you'd be like, oh, he's lost 20 drones to the Oracles this game, he's behind. And you'd be like, wait, he actually has more drones than everyone else. It was actually True's games that really hit home this point. I'm just made about like, if you skip those spores, you're getting such a big boost to your economy early by having more minerals that you can actually absorb way more damage. Now that was him making mistakes, but then he'd have games where his queens were well positioned and he'd lose 6, 7, 8 drones over the course of a 3 Oracle investment by the 7-minute mark. And you'd be like, oh, it's not great. That's okay. Damage. The Oracles are all still alive. And you're like, wait, how has he got such a big economy advantage? And then he's like swamping them with this not huge economy, but huge amount of units because he's hit 3 base workers so quickly. And then he's just endless stream of units across the map. So that was really cool when I was like, oh, this guy just is... He'll have some games where he takes too much damage and he falls behind, but it was like funny because he'd be taking damage and casters would be like, you've lost 27 drones, build some fucking spores. And he'd be like, nah, like that'll just put me further behind. I'm going to keep trying to make it work. Sometimes you'd get punished really hard for it. And you'd be like, okay, this is actually dumb. Build spores, dude. But other games, he'd get away with it and he'd get a big lead off it. And it just kind of reminded us that it's a little bit more of a complicated, you know, algorithm than we sometimes think about.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Fun player, man. Fun player, dude. Degenerate gambler as well. Oh god, him and Rotterdam at like 5 in the morning, still playing like 2-person poker for hours, just stealing money off each other, and whoever's losing is always like, one more, no, double or nothing. And I was like, you guys are crazy. But yeah, the gambling mindset players are the ones who can actually teach us a lot about where there's little edges that a risk-averse player would never take. So always good to study those players rather than dismiss them as, oh, he's an effing idiot, this guy's so bad. Always good to look at it and go, wait, what chance is he playing into? What chance is he looking for here? When does this pay off? And yeah, I always love that. But I think that's cool. So that would have given you a big head start in this game. I think if we didn't build those spores at all, because you build 3 extra queens. So you go like 5, 6, 7 queens, something like that here, which is really nice. So if you droned really hard, and remember, even before your third's finished, we could already have that fully saturated with this late third off the 12 pool.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
If we go forward a bit, when he starts bouncing between my main and my fourth, like the 6 Void Rays into deny your fourth, denied your fourth, denied your fourth a fourth time.
The nightmare.
Like, you know, it's so frustrating. And then they,
yeah.
you know, you respond to that, and then they come in and they get a gas geyser, or even, you know, they'll fly in out of nowhere, and you can't have scouting ovies because they just melt.
Yeah.
And they fly in and snipe your hive. It's like, oh.
you can be as prepared as you want. They'll always kill shit if you do. So I think you've always got to expand in a line, even if you're not used to taking that fourth. When you're playing against the Void Rays, you've got to expand flat along the map. Even though this one's still kind of far away, it's just the fact that they can't rotate from threatening that to another angle quickly. So you they'd have to go through the middle where Ling spotters can easily pick him up. It's a really long path to get around. So that's something. Yeah, I tried to defend this fourth because I much prefer this same fourth equivalency on many maps many times. I had the exact same experience as you, and I was like, nope. Okay. At a certain point, I just realized like I was so fucking prepared, and I'd still lose it, or I'd be like, yes, I defended it, and they run in and just ignore a spore and 2 queens in my main, kill my hive before it finishes, and run away. And I'm like, oh, I hate you so much, man. So yeah, I think you just can't take that fourth. You have to take it on the other side. And you need to be very prepared that they're always going to look for the snipe on it. So I like to have a few Lings peppered across the map. Lings are my main scouts against Void Rays because each time they die, it's not that big a deal. But I just want to make sure I know which angle they're coming from, right? So if they go to the left, my queens can be there. If they go to the right, my queens can be there. And normally it's the fourth that I'm worried about. But obviously you don't want to lose your lair or your hive. So that's a big one. Cool. So in this particular game, I think Vipers was the answer. Because, oh, you actually did great economic damage, by the way. So good on you. It's a real shame you didn't get the third earlier. A few times you failed to get that, just barely. But if they ever go Colossi, do the double robo after the Skytoss, getting stuck on Hydras can be very rough. Hydra Bane can work technically if you get like a surround. Problem is if they don't give you a good enough surround or whatever, it's really awkward, man. Those disruptors, the Colossi, it's very hard to fight. But you get Vipers. If anyone ever goes Colossus Void Ray, it's just such good targets for abduct, man. So if you get the quick hive up against any Void Ray style like this, that's amazing if you're playing the long game. However, we talked about Hydra Bane being a bit of a simpler path. So I think that's probably what you want to focus on more as a default. And then even if they go Colossus, they've got 1 or 2 out, but bam, here at like 8 minutes, 8:30, you're smashing in with Hydra Bane and starting to go ham, right? And that would make a huge diff. So yeah, I think the Hydra Bane attack as the more normie way of breaking him is good. You could probably do it off 3-base saturation. It's just obviously if they get enough Colossi, some batteries, some cannons, they defend it. You're only on 3 bases. They're on 3 bases. You just threw an army away. You are probably dead. So it's very committed in that case.
I was doing the Hydra Bane timings, and I got it reasonably crisp, but then against like the 5.2k Protosses, they just roll over the top of you. Like they'd have a really early storm. They'd see it coming from a mile away. You know, they'd be dancing around with they'd stop short at like 5 Void Rays, and then they'd just have this ridiculously fast gateway and high Templar explosion.
Yeah, I think you're probably a little behind in those games. So I think little things like the opening stuff is what we want to do to make sure you hit that even faster and harder, right? I do think you want to have changelings, like have overseers checking what you're going into. So you're not like under the impression it's this and it was actually just 2 Void Rays only. Right. And then they've gone straight into like Storm and stuff. But if they've gone like 5, 6 Void Rays, then they've got up a big good enough Storm army, it's like Hydra Bane's actually good at breaking Storm and stuff like that. And maybe in some situations you'll have to just deny a 4th rather than go for like the kill. But I think if we smooth out our openings, I think we'll be able to do really well. So obviously you've done 12 pool this game. I think you came out of it okay as well as I could have seen. I do personally always prefer the quick third rather than the double gas, but obviously with them delaying the Nexus this hard, you kind of had to go for something a little bit different.
I agree with you, and that's what I was thinking. Trying to get up speed with the delayed Nexus.
I think your queens were a little late though, so let's take a look. Yeah. Because sorry, let's take it. Oh, do you go queen before hatch? That's what I normally do with a 12 pool. Yeah. I don't know. Is that what pros do in ZVP at the moment? I would imagine it is, but I'm not sure.
I watched a couple of Cyril games before I started doing this, and he did it in like 2 or 3, and I said, all right, good enough for me.
Yep. So it was always queen hatch every time you did it, right?
Yeah. I only watched 2 or 3 games though.
But you stop at 10 lings every game, right? As well, yeah?
Yep. Sometimes 8, usually 10.
Awesome. That's the number. 8 or 10 for sure. Any more than that gets really silly. If you could do it if you're building a hatchery to block their wall or something, you know, or inside their main, you're doing those mineral all-ins where you just try to get hatcheries up inside their base and like just, you know, rally Zerglings endlessly. But Those and those all-ins are not bad, man. A lot of people die to those, but they are pretty silly. So I think that's a good way of doing it. So I think droning here, we could have probably been a little faster on some of these drones behind it. You're microing hard, that's fair enough. But having 2 queens out front to greet the adepts is very important when they arrive. That's like a timing thing where, yeah, we could have had a second queen out. Because if you have 2 queens out front, especially if you get a tumor connecting your bases, or even better out front the base, you can force that shade out really far. And if they try to run past those queens, they take heaps of damage. And you can just run drones away from the natural if they want. And then you could basically focus all your Zerglings just on being on top of the shade. And it is a much cleaner defense. So make sure you've always got 2 queens out by the counterattack moment. Yep. So just cue that second queen a little bit earlier, and you should be in a good spot. 12 pool, second queen earlier. Both queens out front natural. Tumor if you can squeeze it in, right? And then lings follow the shades. And that way you can get away with just this number. I normally against 2 adepts, like I'd probably go right up to 14 lings to be mega safe. Maybe 12. So I'd probably build at least 1 more pair here. Just because like if your queens, even if they get a few shots on them, they can go up into the off the creep area and kind of dance around the edge. And it's just kind of hard to keep up with the shade. Most people won't micro that well. Sometimes you can get away with like 6 lings just because people aren't like perfectly microing their adepts. But yeah, I think that would have been really good because these adepts, they got 1 drone, they get a second drone, and they're still alive at the end of it. And then they secure his third. So that was like really good for him.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Painful. As soon as that happened, I was like, crap.
Yeah. That's a frustrating one. I think you ended up okay economically though, right? Like he's got like good tech and really fast gas, but he's not really building. Oh, he doesn't build probes consistently. That's why. So he kind of fucked up a bit, and that he's kind of like so focused on getting the void rays out so early that his probe production is like a little on and off. Say what?
He's a bit lower MMR.
No worries.
Which was an even more painful loss, but it is what it is.
It happens, man. It happens. Oh my god, my map just screwed up. It just showed like a void ray beam going from the other side of the map. That was weird. Yeah. So then we take that 4th in the bottom right, and then we're like, oh yeah. So let's look at this ling attack. This ling attack should have gone in earlier, right? Like way earlier.
I'm just waiting for him to poke in with his void rays.
I think because you saw the void rays already on your side, though, we should have gone, right? Because then you get spotted. So I'd like that you attack the zealot there. I think that's really nice. Let's just look at the prioritization. I think we should have clicked the battery. Yep, we do that. Ooh, we should have left a few more on the battery there for sure. And then we do actually, yeah, we get the wraparound. We tried to pull a few lings to attack the other guys. That's okay. The wall off all of his void rays recall. You're like, I mean, maybe we kill those gateways and get in, but unless you're holding down the Zergling key, you're probably going to lose every ling by the time you kill the natural wall, right? So I think this was great. You got rid of the adepts, you focus fired the probes, then you went for the nexus. Like, this was good prioritization. If that daddy longlegs didn't pop out right then, that's a dead nexus, right?
Down to 36 HP.
Yeah, so I think this was pretty good by you. I think we could have gone in a bit earlier if we were going to build that many lings, but that's about it. So, because I
suppose the Colossus wouldn't have popped out if everything else was the same, hey?
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. If we went in straight away with those 20 lings, you could argue building that many lings right now is a bit wild. So something Dark does is this is another attack you might like, as someone who I know is a more aggressive player. Dark's nonsense Lingbane Rufflecopter attack. I just named it that. Everyone knows this attack because it's so stupid, but it works every game. I can't think of a game off the top of my head that he's done. He did it a lot at the end of last year. A lot over 2019, he did this. Essentially, normal macro build, +1 melee, often going Hydra Bane. Sometimes he doesn't even have the +1 melee, right? But then he just stops at 50 workers, makes like 50 lings, 10 to 15 Banes, and goes. And basically the whole thing is he dodges their Stargate vision. So he was doing this versus Oracle play a lot, just 3 Oracle play, where he'd just make sure he'd like send a lot of link spotters out so he'd get across the map without them seeing him. And the Oracles are still like tagging his tech and everything looks normal because he's droned pretty hard to that point. And they're doing, dive-ins and stasis traps. And he just morphs a bunch of Banes and he just like runs into the 3rd and the natural at like about this time when they don't have many units. And it's like banelings just crack the natural wall unit instantly, and they also crack any units in the gap on the third. So they need to like instantly warp in a sentry, force field. Blah. And I remember there was games where like stats would be like, cool, I got 4 sentries, an immortal, and a zealot. They're like out in between his natural and his third. And he's like, what? Like, you know, because the Protoss feels so safe at that time. It's kind of the same with this sort of Skytoss play. So that's another option there where you could do that. You're like, okay, big ass round of Lingbane, hit the natural in the third same time.
And is that permitted? Yeah, so Hydra Bane, so with a lair.
Yeah, he'd have a lair, he'd make it look all normal. He's not going really for Hydras yet because he's still got a bit more droning to do and stuff. But then you just go back to droning and play a macro game. And sometimes you're behind if they hold it. But it's just one of those like attacks where you're like, oh, it's a weird timing. If you're good enough at getting it across the map without it getting spotted, it's this moment where they're probing their third quite hard. And just the surprise factor, even if they have sentries of banelings coming in with the lings from multiple sides, they need to have a really quick, sick micro execution on 2 fronts, natural and third, in order to not take a whole bunch of economic damage. And like some games, they defend perfectly at the third, and then like these 5 banelings walk in and kill their whole natural mineral line, and some lings run in their main as well. And like the Protoss is just 30 probes down, and the Zerg hasn't even committed that much.
That's what I'm coming to the conclusion that I need to do. Just smaller, like if they've got 6 voids on my side of the map, just walk 10 banes into their mineral line or into both mineral lines. Like, and how could if I walked 10 banes or 5 banes and 10 lings into each mineral line right now, like what's he gonna do?
Yeah. He's got 2 warp-ins, nothing else, right? He could recall the voids, but what's that gonna do?
I didn't need 45 lings to do that, maybe 20.
Yeah. Yeah, you actually, like I've said build 50 lings there. That's Vegas shit. I'm literally putting a squiggly line in front of that. I'm literally like just make some lings and 1 big round of banes there. And it delays your tech and stuff, but yeah, it's
drones and tech while you hit the attack type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another thing. If we think about it, technically, we don't need to be able to fight the Void Rays.
No.
Because we could like literally be like, oh, I only have 5 queens. Like, but I know that around the time the Void Rays are going to start attacking me, I'm going to hit him with Lingbane, and he's going to have to send him home. Yeah. Or he's going to just lose the base trade kind of thing, right? So you're like, cool. I can actually be a greedy fucker, and that's obviously, you know, have your cake and eat it as well, right? Have your cake and eat it too. That's like it's being greedy, but it's also a powerful way of playing StarCraft. Is hey, man, if I'm doing this thing and forcing you to react to it, I can just not be safe against your units being on my side of the map, right? It's the classic way of doing a comeback, right? Is like you just keep harassing multiple sides while building like 30 more drones, then going into a big army while you're just constantly backstabbing them. And you know you could never win a frontal fight during this time, but you're both trying to find damage and keeping them busy while you hopefully cover the greed that's behind it, right? You know, you're puffing out your chest to be like, oh, you know, I'm the scary one. You're the one who has to defend. And realistically, you could never beat them in a frontal fight. You're just trying to kind of run them in circles and find damage where it shouldn't exist. And that's like a really, really cool way to do it. So I like that thought because it's similar to what you did here. It's just like, oh, wait a second. If we had some banelings, that shield battery and 2 adepts, just gone. The natural wall in, he can't wall that off. You just blow up the pylon, even if he does get the pylon down. Like, it's very cool what that opens up. So I really like that, man. I think that's another really good option. We've got your 12 pool. We've got that one. We've got obviously just a very generic Hydra Bane attack. But we've also said things like, hey, don't let him expand. Get like a Ling pressure out early, potentially to deny the third base in the first place can be a good way of setting yourself up. I think this already starts to give us quite a few tools.
Can you go back to when he puts the third down?
Yeah, let's look at that. I think it was about 4:30. Just before. It's a real quick third. This was 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Greedy boy.
So what does he have?
So
when does his Stargates go down? Stargates before.
Yeah.
And he has no Stargate units yet.
Yeah. So this is one. If you have 12 lings, you just surround those adepts. In the open, you go, oh, fuck yes. So many, even pro Protoss players, leave those units out there. They should have been told to move between the minerals, shift hold position. Lazy Protoss player. Lazy. Every time I see a Drogo or a top-level Protoss do this, I'm like, what are you doing, man? This is like how you let Zerg get an easy win over you. Just come in with 10 lings and stop you taking a third base and kill your units. But yeah, even if you just happen to be out here with a few lings before, if those adepts aren't quite on it, sometimes you could just be like, oh, cool. oh, he's coming over there. You just click your 6 lings on the probe, shift click them back, right? He's got to send another probe over. Even that delay is huge. And he does come over here early. Yeah. So you would have had warning. So that's why I do like to, it kind of depends. You don't have ling speed this game. This is a different opening, right? But if you had ling speed as more of a quote unquote normal game,
yeah,
you might be able to get those lings over there. It's just the one thing you want to worry about. Some players do this. They're like, yeah, they always just send their lings across. And the adepts are just here the whole time, waiting for your lings to show up on their side of the map, and then they shade in. You've got nothing at home, and they kill 10 drones with 2 adepts. That's much worse for you than it is for them, even if you slow down their third, right? So just be a little wary. If you've seen them come out on the map with adepts, but you haven't actually killed them or really forced them to go home, sometimes they can be out there. I wouldn't worry about it preemptively. I would, if you find yourself getting punished by that, hone in on the problem. But until then, you know, it's okay to be a little greedy. We don't want to be afraid of shit that's not even happening yet. I'm just saying, if it starts happening, you know, figure it out. But for now, it should be good, I think.
So what I'm hearing is more predefined things to work towards in the early game.
Yeah, I think that'll be good, man. I think that'll be really huge. I think in terms of like your standard build and play as well, so let me organize that a little more. What was I mentioning before about spores? I was saying don't need them so early, right? Build rules and reactions. Okay, so up here where I wrote about the spores, I said if you see Void Ray or Phoenix Verse, don't build any spores at all or delay them a lot. Now, I think another really thing, a good benchmark is how quick are you saturating your third base? So if you're not being super aggressive, and even if you are, factor it in. Like, oh, I denied his third, but my third base didn't get saturated on minerals. Oh, this is mineral saturation, right? We're talking about, because that's where you get ahead. Against Stargate is he doesn't have a big ground push. We don't need to be building a roach warren, extra gases that early. We can drone, and the quicker we get that third mineral line, that's kind of our lead in ZVP and ZVT especially. If we can get that up quicker than our opponent, which we normally should be able to, that's more queens, more lings. Roaches are mostly minerals as well. That's going to be a 4th hatchery going down nice and early before 6 minutes, 7 minutes. It's like all of those lovely advantages comes off the back of how quick that third gets saturated. So I think that's going to be a really good thing you can read into, and that's going to sync up with things like if you delay those spores, you're going to find you saturate this third easy 5 minutes 30, maybe even earlier. 5 minutes, some games. You might have 16 drones on that third hatchery. Maybe it's a bit later if you commit to the lings to deny the third, but I think this is a good thing we can start looking at. So in this game, that third gets saturated 6:20, okay? So I'm just going to write that down. If you just make a habit of rewinding your games and just going, hey, when did that third get saturated? I think it'll force you to just double check your openings are tight, your spores aren't going down too early, and you're hitting those drones well. So that's a nice benchmark just to make sure you're putting your games in perspective of how good your opening was.
Okay, that's, yeah, right. One thing we've spent a lot of time on ZVP, which has been really helpful, but in general with just practice, all I typically do is grind out ladder games.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on just the most high quality practice for, you know, you've got 2 hours, you've got an hour. I want to get as much practice in as I can, or I want the practice I'm doing to be as effective as possible. What do you do? Or what do the pro games do? I mean,
I'm a lazy bastard these days, so I'm not very optimal, but I definitely occasionally will hit a low point where I'm just not enjoying StarCraft that much because I haven't sat down and written down my builds. I keep changing what I'm doing game to game. I keep doing these responses that are kind of like half-baked and don't fully make sense. Like there's a good idea, but it doesn't make sense because I haven't worked out the details. So it's like a good idea executed badly, and I keep doing that, and I'm fucking angry. So when those times happen, there's a few things I do, right? So in terms of like practice, I guess in general, we'll just write this here. Practice habits. So basically writing out my builds and trying to get as much detail as I can. Like when I write out a build order, I try to have like, there'll be like random notes below it where I'm like, yeah, I got to stop them getting a fast third. Like if I was talking about ZVP from your point of view here, I'd be like, that would be in the notes below. There'd be a whole section on like denying the Protoss third base because that's like a big problem I've identified, right? Writing out my builds, writing out problem points. So like any moment where you feel uncomfortable, You had a big one today. Skytoss. Fucking hate Skytoss. Don't know what I'm doing against Skytoss. It's driving me crazy. But it can be smaller than that as well. It's always the first adept. I keep losing drones to it. It could be like real minor stuff. My spores never seem to keep me safe. First Oracle's always getting 3, 4, 5 drone kills. Man, I know how to play against mutas, I think, but I always feel behind when I'm playing against mutas. Like anytime you identify a moment in the game you feel behind or uncomfortable or not in your element, or there's like moments where you're kind of pausing in your play, you're getting sticking points, that's a good sign you don't know or you don't fully understand that situation. And that's like a problem point, right? Is the way I think of that, where I go, okay. And then I try to like actually have a bit of a sit down and think about it, right? Where I'm like, okay, like when exactly do I build this thing to counter that thing? Or what are the common mistakes? Why am I always getting supply blocked against mutas? Is there just like some point in my build I can remind myself to build a few extra overlords? Am I not pulling my overlords off the map on time? Like, and I start to try to just understand the problem and look at a few different aspects of it so that I can, next time I'm in that situation, have like a kind of mental checklist in my head of the things I've got to focus on to be more effective, right? Because it's those situations that frustrate you where it's really easy to kind of get in that point. You're like, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. And like, it's really hard in game to then reestablish mental control. So those are the ones where I'm like, if I can come up with some sort of like focus goal list of, okay, do X, do Y, do Z, bam, 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 I'm going to be able to be at least working in a direction. I won't instantly win. I'll still suck at those things, but I can then finish the game. And rather than being emotional, I can be like, did I do those things? I can check the replay and I've got very specific details. So my learning is like very focused as opposed to going, what the hell just happened? I just died to Skytoss again. Oh my God, this is a nightmare. Instead I can go, how quick did his third get up? Did I deny it? Oh, did I screw up the deny? You know, like you've got a few different things to look at, like what we've just done. So always thinking in terms of number one, what's my game plan? What's the composition I'm going for? What are some problem points? And also like, what are my attack timings as part of that as well? What are my attack timings? So if I'm like, I just kind of sit back and defend all game, I don't really have any, try to define some specific timing attacks and then execute them, commit to them, even if I'm losing games and they're not the best attack, figure out why and refine it and figure out what I want to be the attacks. Because anytime we don't have those pre-built attacks in, right, we get lost as a player. So in terms of the actual practice, the best thing you can do is custom games, right? You don't want to do too many custom games. If you do more than half your practice in custom games, especially if you've only got a few practice partners, you're playing too much of a small range of builds, like because your opponents will do the same things over and over usually, right? So practice games are the best. If you can find an opponent on ladder who beats you and go, dude, you just kicked my ass, well played, your dick is huge, wow, I'm impressed, will you play custom games? You know, like start with a compliment and be like, fuck you, regay, bitch. You know, that usually doesn't get them to add you to the friends list. But if you're like, man, really well played, you dismantled me, would you be down for a custom game or two? It doesn't always work, but I would say if you're, you know, it's even if 1 in 3 or 4 times or 1 in 5 or 6 times you get a practice partner from it, that's like one of the best ways to learn. Because if you can repeat that situation a few times, it's just, you know, muscle memory starts to get ground in. So I think that's awesome. Even if it's just 4 or 5 games for customs, you know, even just 4 to 5 games in a row of the same style can shoot you leaps and bounds ahead. It's also really nice because it's taking away the very dynamic practice environment. It's just don't know what game you're getting, don't know what matchup. It just simplifies it by a big order of magnitude to get the same matchup and know you're going into that matchup, so you're a bit more mentally prepared before each game. Makes learning a lot easier. The other one, if you can't get customs,
100% true too, because I played 3 games against Runamuck the other day and got destroyed in the first game, had a good game in the second game, and won the third.
Yes, and that's exactly it. And then he will start learning more as you start beating him as well. And that's the really cool thing with custom games is you'll both just improve each other so much. When you can't do it, one of the great things, if you have a strong grasp of planning and theory and all this note-taking and writing out builds like I've been doing here with you, it's not for everyone. Some people are better at it than others, but it's always useful to practice a build order. So you might be like, you know what? I'm going to practice my 12 pool. I'm going to make sure we get that extra queen early and make sure my link speed's on time, to get my third on time, and then prepare for the Bigling Bane attack to try and bust through, imagining they're a Skytoss player. And these situations are best for opening refinements. practicing part of a transition. Okay, bam, start infestation pit, hive inspire. You're just trying to drill that muscle memory in of certain things which you forget to do in the game, as well as grind your opening. You can only do it a few times. It's best when you're drastically changing your style. Oh, I've never played Mutas versus Protoss. I'm going to start playing a Roachling into Muta style. Let's practice that build in a few custom games first. Make sure I understand, okay, I went for Spire here. And then you like look at the replay and you're like, okay, but like technically if I didn't see a third, maybe I wouldn't go the Spire yet. Or you can start to understand where a few reactions might take place, as well as just the different gas timings and things will start to feel more natural.
Cool, man.
So especially new build orders, custom games can be really nice. Empty custom games, no opponent, just click continue game, or very easy AI is also fine. That also works on your ability to visualize, because you're literally playing against nobody, but you're imagining. So you're kind of, it trains your brain to imagine what you're up against and what situation you're in, which is, I think, super duper cool, because that actually is important for if I'm rewinding a replay quickly after a loss, but I'm not going to immediately practice the thing. One of the best things that I can do is just kind of go, oh, okay, I got to remember to build these spores later. Next time I see 2 Stargate. So this is a good example right here, right? Okay, we see 2 Stargate, and we're about to put down 6 spore crawlers in about 20 seconds. There we go. Spore. And we go, okay, no. All right, so what I'll do is I'll visualize really deeply as if I'm playing the game. So I'm going to go back.
We're just cutting out there.
Sorry?
I just started cutting out a bit there.
Sorry, you might cut out for a sec. What was that?
And 6 spore crawlers.
Sorry, what about 6 spore crawlers?
Oh, your microphone's cutting out?
Oh, my microphone's cutting out as well. I think my internet must have been dying, because yours was cutting out as well. I was like, what the hell's going on? So can you, I think it's all clear now. It's all good now. What were you saying?
I heard you say you're about to put down 6 spore crawlers, but you need to do that later.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is like, basically imagine, so I'm you. I've just rewound this replay. I'm coming to that conclusion. I've come to that conclusion that we just have. So I've gone back to this point and I'm going, okay, this is me in the game. I'm on your camera live in the game. So let's see. Okay. We just saw 2 Stargates. Okay, cool. Don't build spores at all. Or I could instead go, build spores 1 minute from now or something. Maybe I have a rule like that if you still like to build spore crawlers, right? So I would literally be like, okay, I'm in the game. Bam, glance at the clock, 4:20. Okay, 5:20, I will start a spore crawler on each base. Bam, go home, keep building drones. It's the most important thing right now. And let's try to squeeze out an extra 3 queens to get up to 6 queens in total. And I would like actually visualize myself going through the process of like prioritizing drones, overlords. Okay, I got enough minerals. Squeeze a queen in, spread some creep, squeeze a queen in. Let's rally to that 3rd base. We want to start saturating that even now, even before it's finished. Just get drones flooding out there. Okay, bam. Okay, now it's time to build spores. Like, you know, whatever that is. But I really try to visualize that even now in the replay as if I'm playing. Like I'm literally moving my hand as if I'm pressing the buttons on my keyboard and as if I'm zooming between my bases. Just because that way, the better you are at visualizing that situation, the quicker you can immediately practice something in your mind without actually having to go through the game and do it. That takes years to get really, really good at, but it's a powerful skill. Some people can do it right from their first time playing a game. Other people, not so much, but it's a nice thing to do. I like it. Cool, dude. So obviously I've rambled around a lot of different things. We've got a lot of different things we talked about with Skytoss. I think with ZVT and Zerg versus Zerg, I guess maybe just try to map out your plan a little bit and just make sure you're nicely defined with it.
I think they're probably way better defined than my ZVP. Like, I really have good plans in those games.
That's good then, yeah. So that's one where you can focus your improvement more around problem points then, right? You could be like, okay, this guy effed me up and I felt way behind all game. You know, that sort of thing, or oh, the BC openings are the one thing I don't feel quite as strong against, you know, whatever it is, right? So you can just do it that way where you go through those and do a little bit of like backtracking through replays, dissecting, thinking about it, and kind of just find some ways to do it. But we can pick up more of that if we do another session down the future. Always happy to answer questions in Twitch chat and stuff as well as you go. So it should be good, man.
Sweet as. Thank you very much.
No worries, dude. All right. Yeah, good luck on the ladder. I hope you enjoy your weekend and stuff as well. And yeah, let me know how it goes. Hopefully, bit of Queenling Nidus, a bit of greedier builds every now and then with the spore timings, and hopefully that all kind of joins together. But yeah, look forward to hearing in a week or so if it's had good results or if there's any more follow-up problems and it's kind of not quite clicking just yet.
Sick. All right. Thanks, man.
All right, sweet, dude. I'll catch you later, man.
I'll catch up with you in about a week or so.
Sweet. Talk to you later.
Bye.